May 31st, 1889. Librarian Gertrude Quinn, 6 years old, stands at the window of her family's home in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, watching the little Carnegie River rage past their house, just feet from the door. It has been raining for days, and the river is higher than she has ever seen it. At 3:10 in the afternoon, Gertrude hears a sound unlike anything she has experienced, a roar like thunder that does not stop. She looks upstream and sees a wall of water 60 feet high rushing down the valley at 40 miles per hour, carrying trees, houses, railroad cars, and human bodies. Her father grabs her and runs for the stairs as the wave hits their house. The building explodes. Gertrude is swept into the churning mass of debris and water, separated from her family, clinging to a mattress as bodies and wreckage spin around her. She is one of the lucky ones. She will survive after being pulled from the debris miles downstream, but 2,209 people will not. In the next 10 minutes, the Johnstown flood will kill more Americans than any other flood in United States history, wiping an entire city off the map when a poorly maintained dam owned by wealthy Pittsburgh industrialists fails and sends 20 million tons of water down a narrow valley. This is the story of Johnstown. The flood that killed 2,200 Americans, exposed the arrogance of the Gilded Age elite, and taught a nation that when the rich build dams to create private playgrounds, the poor downstream pay with their lives. To understand how this catastrophe occurred, we need to examine both the weather and the dam. Johnstown, Pennsylvania sits in a narrow valley where the Little Carnegie River and Stony Creek converge, surrounded by steep mountains. In 1889, it is a prosperous industrial city of about 30,000 people, built on steel mills and wire factories. 14 miles upstream, high in the mountains, sits the South Fork Dam, an earthen dam 72 feet high and 900 feet across, holding back Lake Carnegie, a massive reservoir containing 20 million tons of water. The dam was originally built in the 1850s to supply water for the Pennsylvania Canal system. By the 1880s, the canal is obsolete, and the dam is abandoned and poorly maintained. In 1879, a group of wealthy Pittsburgh industrialists, including Andrew Carnegie, Henry Clay Frick, and Andrew Mellon, purchased the dam and lake to create the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club, an exclusive private resort for Pennsylvania's elite. They rebuild the dam, but they cut corners. They lower the dam's height to accommodate a road across the top. They remove the original discharge pipes, eliminating the ability to lower the lake level in an emergency. They install fish screens across the spillway to prevent stocked fish from escaping, creating debris blockages. And critically, they never properly maintain the dam's structure, allowing leaks, erosion, and weakening to occur unchecked. For years, Johnstown residents expressed concern about the dam's safety. Engineers inspect it and warn it is dangerous. But the wealthy club members dismiss these concerns. They are Pittsburgh's elite, titans of industry who built railroads and steel empires. What do small-town Pennsylvanians know about engineering? The dam is fine. It is held for decades. It will hold forever. This is the arrogance of the Gilded Age, the belief that wealth equals wisdom, that the concerns of ordinary people are beneath consideration, that nature itself can be conquered through money and will. Then comes the weather. Memorial Day weekend 1889 brings unprecedented rainfall to western Pennsylvania. On May 30th and 31st, a massive storm system stalls over the region, dumping 6 to 10 inches of rain in 24 hours. The ground is already saturated from previous spring rains. Every drop runs off immediately into streams and rivers. The Little Carnegie River rises rapidly. In Johnstown, water begins flooding low-lying areas. Residents are concerned but not panicked. Johnstown floods regularly, and they are accustomed to high water. But 14 miles upstream, something much worse is developing. Lake Carnegie is rising at an alarming rate. All the rain falling across the watershed is flowing into the lake faster than it can discharge through the inadequate spillway. By the morning of May 31st, the lake level is approaching the dam's crest. John Park, a young engineer employed by the club, recognizes the danger immediately. The dam is about to overtop. Water will flow over the top, eroding the earthen structure and causing catastrophic failure. Park orders workers to frantically dig additional spillway channels to release water. But it is too late and too little. The fish screens are clogged with debris. The spillway cannot handle the volume. And with no discharge pipes, there is no way to rapidly lower the lake level. At noon on May 31st, Park sends a telegraph warning to Johnstown. The dam is in danger of failing. But this is not the first such warning. False alarms have been sent before when the lake rose high. Many Johnstown residents dismiss the message. They have heard about the dam failing for years. It never happens. The warning gets lost in the noise of a town focused on dealing with the flooding already occurring from the rain. By 3 p.m., Lake Conemaugh was overtopping the dam. Water flowed over the crest, carving channels in the earthen structure. The dam began to erode. At 3:10 p.m., a 300-foot section of the South Fork Dam collapsed all at once. 20 million tons of water, the entire contents of Lake Conemaugh, exploded through the breach, creating a wave 60 feet high that roared down the narrow valley toward Johnstown at speeds up to 40 miles per hour. The wave is not just water, it is a wall of debris. As it races down the valley, it picks up everything in its path. Trees are ripped from the ground. Houses are torn from foundations and become part of the surge. Railroad cars and locomotives weighing dozens of tons are swept along. Boulders move like pebbles. The debris mass grows larger and more destructive with every mile, like an avalanche gaining material. By the time it reaches Johnstown, the flood is a churning mass of water, wood, steel, stone, and bodies, traveling faster than a galloping horse. Small towns between the dam and Johnstown are obliterated. South Fork Village, directly below the dam, is hit first. 14 people die as the wave sweeps through. Mineral Point is next, 16 dead. East Conemaugh, a railroad town, is devastated. Buildings swept away, rail yards destroyed, dozens killed. At each location, the few survivors describe the same thing. A roar, like continuous thunder, a wall of dark water and debris filling the valley from side to side, and then destruction happening so fast there is no time to run. In Johnstown, some residents see the wave approaching. Those on high ground watch in horror as the wall of debris comes down the valley, obliterating everything. Those at street level have only seconds. They hear the roar, see the darkness, and then the wave hits. At 4:07 p.m., the flood strikes Johnstown with the force of a bomb. The wave crashes into the city, demolishing buildings and sweeping away entire blocks. Brick structures crumble. Wooden buildings explode into kindling. The debris mass is so thick and moving so fast that buildings do not just flood, they are battered to pieces by the wreckage of upstream structures slamming into them at 40 miles per hour. The downtown business district is obliterated in minutes. The Cambria Iron Works, Johnstown's largest employer, is destroyed. Furnaces collapse. Machinery is scattered. The building is reduced to rubble. Hundreds of workers inside are killed. Churches, schools, homes, all swept away. People are caught in their houses as buildings collapse around them. Some are crushed by debris. Others are swept into the water, drowning or being battered to death by wreckage. Bodies are mixed into the debris mass, tumbling along with trees, buildings, and rail cars. Gertrude Quinn, the 6-year-old librarian's daughter, is separated from her family when their house disintegrates. She finds herself on a floating mattress, surrounded by debris and bodies. She clings to it for hours as the flood carries her downstream, too terrified to cry, watching other children and adults drown around her. Eventually, she is pulled from the water miles from Johnstown, one of the miraculously few who survive after being swept away. The Maxwell family, parents, and 8 children attempt to flee to higher ground as the wave approaches. The flood catches them on the street. The parents and 5 children are killed instantly, swept away, and drowned. 3 children survive by clinging to debris. The Fenn family loses 7 members: grandparents, parents, and children. Their entire household wiped out when their home collapses. Throughout Johnstown, similar tragedies play out hundreds of times. Entire families killed, children orphaned, parents losing all their children. As the flood passes through Johnstown, it carries an unimaginable amount of debris downstream toward a stone railroad bridge that spans the valley. The bridge, built of massive stone arches, does not collapse under the flood's impact. Instead, it acts as a dam, catching the debris. Thousands of tons of wreckage pile up against the bridge: smashed houses, trees, rail cars, machinery, and trapped within this mass hundreds of people, some alive, some dead, all tangled in the debris. Then, around 6 p.m., the debris pile catches fire. How exactly that begins is never determined. Perhaps an overturned stove, perhaps friction, perhaps a spark from destroyed machinery. But once started, the fire spreads rapidly through the oil-soaked, tinder-dry wreckage. People trapped in the debris mass scream as flames approach. Some are rescued by heroic volunteers who wade into the pile, pulling survivors out. But many cannot be reached. They burn to death, trapped in wreckage, surrounded by water, unable to escape. The fire burns for 3 days, consuming bodies and debris, creating a funeral pyre for hundreds of Johnstown's dead. When the waters finally recede, the scene is apocalyptic. Johnstown is simply gone. The downtown is a field of mud and scattered debris. Entire neighborhoods have vanished, not damaged, but erased, as if they never existed. Bodies are everywhere, buried in mud, tangled in debris, caught in trees, floating in remaining pools of water. The death toll climbs as bodies are recovered: 100, then 500, then 1,000, then 2,000. The final count reaches 2,209 dead, making the Johnstown flood the deadliest flood in U.S. history, and one of the worst disasters of any kind in American history. Among the dead are 99 entire families wiped out completely, leaving no survivors. 777 victims are never identified, their bodies too damaged, or no one left alive who knew them to identify them. They are buried in mass graves, with markers that read simply unknown. 400 children are orphaned. 98 children lose both parents. 1,600 homes are destroyed. The economic damage exceeds $17 million in 1889 and is over $500 million today. The national response is immediate and overwhelming. Relief efforts begin within hours. Clara Barton and the American Red Cross, then just a few years old, arrive in Johnstown within days and coordinate relief work. Donations pour in from across America and internationally. Tent cities house survivors. Field kitchens feed thousands. Gradually, the cleanup begins, removing debris, recovering bodies, clearing streets. But rebuilding takes years. Some residents never return, unable to face living in a place where they lost so much. The question of responsibility becomes immediate and contentious. The South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club members, the Pittsburgh industrialists who owned the dam, claim the flood was an act of God, an unavoidable natural disaster for which they bear no responsibility. They argue the unprecedented rainfall made failure inevitable, that no dam could have held. Survivors and their lawyers disagree. The dam was poorly maintained. Essential safety features were removed or never repaired. Warnings were ignored. This was not an act of God. It was negligence, hubris, and indifference to the lives of ordinary people downstream. Multiple lawsuits are filed against club members seeking damages. But the legal outcome is disheartening. Not a single lawsuit succeeds. Pennsylvania law at the time makes it difficult to prove liability for dam failures. Club members hire the best lawyers money can buy. And the reality of Gilded Age America is stark. The wealthy are protected by the legal system, while the poor bear the consequences of the rich's mistakes. Andrew Carnegie, Henry Clay Frick, and the other club members never pay a cent in damages. The legal precedent set by Johnstown, that dam owners might not be liable for failures, influences American water law for decades. But the Johnstown flood does spark changes in safety and dam regulation. Pennsylvania and other states begin requiring dam inspections and safety standards. The concept that dams pose public safety risks, requiring government oversight, gains traction. Engineers develop better design standards for earthen dams. The lesson that removing safety features for convenience or aesthetics is deadly becomes codified in regulations. These changes come too late for the 2,209 who died in Johnstown, but they help prevent future disasters. The Johnstown flood also becomes a symbol of Gilded Age inequality and injustice. The image of wealthy industrialists creating a private playground that kills thousands of working-class people downstream captures the era's class divisions. The flood becomes a rallying point for progressive reformers, arguing for greater regulation of the wealthy and protection for ordinary citizens. The disaster contributes to growing public skepticism about unfettered capitalism and the belief that the rich should be allowed to do whatever they want with their property, regardless of consequences for others. 135 years later, the Johnstown flood remains America's deadliest flood disaster. Its death toll of 2,209 exceeds any other U.S. flood, including the 1927 Great Mississippi Flood. The Johnstown Flood National Memorial now marks the site of the South Fork Dam breach, preserving the story for future generations. The disaster is taught in engineering schools as a case study in what happens when safety is sacrificed for convenience and cost-cutting. May 31, 1889, taught America that dams are not playthings for the wealthy, that water does not respect class or wealth, and that when the powerful build inadequately, without regard for those downstream, disaster follows. 2,209 people died learning these lessons. 99 entire families were erased. A city was destroyed in 10 minutes by 20 million tons of water released by a dam that never should have failed. The Johnstown flood, the flood that killed more Americans than any other. The disaster caused by Gilded Age arrogance. The tragedy that proved water always finds a way and always makes the powerless pay for the powerful's mistakes, stands as a permanent indictment of the belief that wealth grants the right to endanger others. It is a permanent reminder that engineering is not optional and maintenance is not negotiable when lives depend on it.